All right, Jim. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, thank you for joining me because I realized I was speaking with the students in my LSC, and we were talking about they're at this phase where they're writing chapter one, moving into chapter two, where they have to now do a sort of a systematic literature survey.
Hmm.
And I am very old-fashioned. I'm so old-fashioned that I don't even have what are these tools which are not new anymore, which, what are they called? The ones which let you keep all your things in one place. And
Oh, the citation managers.
yes, I don't even have those, right?
Okay.
Completely dependent on my graduate students for that. But I realized that I've heard a lot about these new AI tools that help you do this work, and I know not much about them, despite the fact that I spend a lot of time working with AI and so on. This is just not an area I've gotten into. And I
Hmm.
know you, as a part of your CPED work, as a part of your work with the EDD program, and as your general interest, you have focused your attention on this. So I thought maybe we'd just have a quick chat. We'll keep it sort of nice and tight, but sort of hear from you about how this area is changing. What are some recommendations for tools that you have, things we should never do, stuff
Hmm.
that way, and then we'll go from there. So
Yeah. No, it's
kick us
great.
off.
And I do the same thing with my students, my EDD students. I'm trying to help them figure out the best tools and ways to find research and literature. And I think one of the things that the students hear is they hear that AI, obviously ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini, are these great new tools that can go out there and search the web and find everything. But one of the things that I've found is that you don't want to be using ChatGPT and Claude and things like that to find academic research. And I know that you're very familiar with what AI can or can't
Oh
do.
man, it's funny the number of awards, fictitious awards it has given me, the number of fictitious publications it has given me. This sounds, when I look at some of the fake ones it created for me, it's like I should have written that. Sadly, I never
Exactly.
did.
And that's the problem. When you do a search with ChatGPT for, let's say, academic articles on a topic, it's going to go out and search the web. It's going to come back with all kinds of things. Some of them might be good and
Yeah.
legitimate, but that is not the place where we want graduate students searching for academic research because
Yeah.
it's really not, the systems are not trained on that research.
So the
Uh,
other thing, something that one of my doc students, Nicole, just said before we met, was that if you are looking for current work, if you're looking for some field that is established, in some ways, ChatGPT or Claude may be okay to find the foundational ideas in the field and
sure.
so on. But when we are conducting research, we are looking at what's been published in the last few years and more recent stuff, and that it is definitely not good for that. Above and beyond the hallucinatory sort of making up stuff that it does very
Mhm.
convincingly.
Yeah.
So
And,
yeah,
and, we were talking earlier, Google Scholar is the great place to find that current research. And the students need to actually log into Google Scholar through the ASU library. And that way, if they tunnel in through there, then they get access to everything that the ASU library has. So it's better than just going out to Google Scholar. But Google
that's
Scholar
a
is much more up to date and current. It's a great resource.
So that's a really good point to make, which is to log in through ASU because ASU has access to so many journals and so on that then it becomes almost a seamless process of clicking on the PDF or like click here for the PDF and you'll actually get access to the article.
Yeah, yeah. So let's jump in. You had mentioned that
Okay.
some AI research. I'm going to share my screen. Before I do that, I just want to mention that the shift that we're seeing is that academic research and scholarship and searching is really moving from the Boolean logic, which is and or that we've typically used in academic research databases, to more natural language. And when you do natural language, then you can just ask these systems what it is you're looking for, and they can answer you. And you can ask for it in a way that is much more natural than the logic that you have to do within Boolean logic, which is
Right.
a big shift.
That's a really good point.
All right, so let me go ahead and I'll share my screen,
Hmm.
and you can see my screen now. Um, and
So
this
this,
is the database. This is the Boolean logic that I just mentioned. So most students are
okay.
used to doing this, going in there and putting a search in, like I put in self-regulated learning and mathematics. There's nothing wrong with doing this. I want to emphasize that this is
Sure.
still a valid way because you're getting to all the paywalled academic research that the ASU library has subscribed to. So don't abandon this. It's
Right.
going to be it's still going to be a source for you. But this
And
is a
in
way
some
that's
ways, if you're looking at things which are established, like self-regulated learning, math ed, those are established fields, a Boolean might actually be much more precise and get you right there.
Exactly, exactly. So I tell my students, you definitely want to be using these databases. Don't use ChatGPT. Use these databases, and you're going to find, a lot of the good research you want. And typically, I'll move this down. Can you see my Zotero there?
Yep, that was one of the tools that I never learned
That's
to
a
use.
citation
That's how
manager. And
old-fashioned I
again,
am.
you still might use citation managers as well, and it just
Mhm.
it keeps a nice way of. In fact, I think I have one of your articles in here somewhere. Let's see. Yeah, there it is. The TPAC and ChatGPT. It's got the
Ah,
abstract. You've got the article. It's a really nice way to keep things, and you can get all the APA citations and stuff. So again, Boolean logic with databases and citation managers. There's nothing wrong with those. You might still want to use those, but we've really gone above and beyond that now with some of the tools that you can do with searching. So let's go ahead and jump into that. So one of the tools that's out there that's called Research Rabbit, and as we look at these tools, remember that they look at a lot of open source databases. They look at some things that are published behind paywalls, but it's not comprehensive. So if you're just using Research Rabbit, you may not be tapping into everything that you can find within ASU. Um,
so, 2 points. I think first, this point, I want to underscore the point that you make. And I tend to do that even with large language models when I'm doing some work. If I'm, let's say, coding something, I'll take code from Claude and give it to ChatGPT and say, "Uh, tell me more about it. What could be improved?" Then I take it back to Claude. And so I think what you're also saying is that don't depend on one tool. Right now, you've already talked about Google Scholar. You've talked about the Boolean searches that ASU Library allows us to do. And this is one more in your toolkit.
Exactly, exactly. So students don't want to, and that's a really good point. You don't want to pick one thing, whether it's Research Rabbit or the ERIC database. You want to cast a broad net, so you're getting open source publications. You're getting stuff behind paywalls. If you really want to do a complete academic, search, a true literature review, you really need to be looking at multiple sources. So this is
So,
Research Rabbit, and you can see it looks entirely different than what you would see in a library database. What's really exciting about this is that you can start with a single article that you could type in here, a journal article or a DOI link, and start
uh,
your search that way, and it'll find articles that are related to that. So it doesn't
interesting.
just do a normal keyword search, it'll find articles that are related. I've already gone out and found a library of articles here. Here's saved articles that I have, and you can put them into what we call libraries, right? You can have a library here. I've got articles that are within a particular library of, like, I've got ChatGPT or self-determination theory, and the articles can be color coded according to what library they're
Got it.
in, and then you've got access to all those. So it looks similar to what you might find in your Zotero database, but you've got complete access not only to those articles, but to articles that are related and related to those articles. So that's really powerful.
So, 2 questions here. So, one is this a paid subscription-based thing, or is there a free? How does it work?
Yeah,
Because, we're
great
talking about
question.
graduate students here uh, who love free, and as they should.
Exactly. So most of the features that you can use with this Research Rabbit are free, but over
Okay.
here under the search, on this other side piece here, if you want to get to things like keywords, and keywords here, that does cost money, but you can still do all the searching for similar articles, articles by the same author, articles
Mm,
that are mostly cited, all those kind of basic things. Keywords is one of the things that you can't do, but again, it's not even expensive.
that's
It's
okay.
like $10 or $12 a month, and
Sure.
maybe
You do it for 2 months and then you stop.
exactly. When you're in the
Right.
thick of you're doing your lit review, maybe you spend $20 or $30 to do that,
Sure. Makes
and you
sense.
can get access to that. But for the most things that I'm showing you, you can get with the standard version.
So I'm going to
Um,
share a tip that I give my students when they are entering into a new domain that they don't know much about. And what I suggest to them is go find some key handbook chapters about the field
Thank you.
because they have done the hard work. Some top notch scholar has done the hard work of looking at the whole field, and that will help you identify some key articles in the field. What I'm hearing now from you is that I could now take those key articles and put them here.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I tell my students the same thing. If you find one article or one author that is really germane to your
Critical.
topic, that is the most cited person, whatever it might be, you take that article and you start that with, that's your start your search. Now you find all the similar articles, all the ways that article has been cited, and now
Hmm.
you're off to the races really
Awesome.
fast, which is really different than a keyword search. So we've
Awesome.
been
All
looking
right.
at the library here.
You were showing me a network or something. Show me that.
Yeah, exactly. So if you go into the search mode, now I was in the library mode. This is all the things that I found
Hmm.
that I think are good articles. When you go into the search mode and you click on an article, it's now going to show you a graphic representation of that article, how it's been cited, similar articles, and the ones with the color code with a little icon, that means it's in my database. I already have it.
You already
So
have it.
it puts a little, what they call a seed in
Hmm.
Research Rabbit. So you can click on this. It's a dynamic thing. So if I look at Skunk, who's talks a lot about self-regulated learning, and I click on it, it's now going to show me how the articles that have been cited are similar to the one here.
Got
So you can
it.
see I greatly expand my literature review simply by looking at this graphically and then clicking around.
Nice.
Here's DC and Ryan, self-regulated learning. I click on that, and now it shows me the connections that goes back to that article I just looked at. So it's
Sweet.
a fabulous way to visually look at how these articles are connected.
Awesome. All
So
right. So this is a good intro to
Research Rabbit,
Research
and we don't have
Rabbit.
time to go into all the specifics, but over here you can do some searching on what are articles that are similar.
Sure.
It creates a new search, articles that have been mostly cited. And what's nice is that this is the articles that are similar to the one I picked, but I can always go back to my original search. And that was the article that I selected here, how they're
Got it.
connected. So you can correct these little, what they call rabbit holes,
Yeah.
appropriately named. So I can
Right.
look at my searches in a very visual sense. So
Perfect.
great tool for looking at the connections between articles, authors, similarities. Really a wonderful way to look for research.
Fantastic. All right. What's
Okay,
next?
that's Research Rabbit. Okay, next is Scopus. And Scopus is really a collection of abstracts and articles that the ASU library subscribes to from Elsevier. And you get to this through the ASU library. So you log into ASU, you go to the ASU library, you click on Scopus, and this brings you into here. It's something
So just
that
to underscore something, Jim, just so that it's clear to people that Research Rabbit requires your own individual login and so on. It's not through ASU.
exactly.
Scopus is actually through your ASU library, and then you have access to it.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. So, and some students may be familiar with Scopus. Think of it, Scopus, as an alternative to using the ASU library databases. It's much more comprehensive. It has millions of articles and abstracts, so you can search. Now, the normal Scopus, where you can search very similar to what you saw with the ERIC database, is that you can search abstracts, keywords, etc., kind of more of a traditional Boolean search. But now Scopus has AI, Scopus AI. And so let's say I come in here and I'll keep on that. I'm going to just switch topics to multimedia learning, something I did a lot of studying with my own dissertation. So I look at multimedia learning and it'll look for topics. Now I'm using AI, and most of you are familiar with like a ChatGPT interface, natural language interface of AI. That is now built inside of Scopus. So
Got it.
imagine that you've taken the AI capabilities and you've put that inside of traditional databases. And so it comes up with a list of different articles and things. I'm going to switch over really quickly to our advanced AI search here. And now I'm going to put a natural language question in here and say, I want to learn about multimedia learning. And so this looks very much like you'd have uh, a search in ChatGPT, but the difference here is you're looking at actual abstracts and databases within Scopus. That's
Right.
really, really different than being out there on the wild web with ChatGPT. So you can see it comes back with results.
Uh-huh.
Um, all of these results are linked in. So let me go back. I did that a little fast. Here's all the
Hmm.
principles of multimedia learning, coding, processing. These are things I did a lot of research on. And you
Right.
can see these little links that are here.
Yeah.
All of these links go back into the abstracts and the articles within Scopus. So when
Got
I
it.
click on one, here's the article. I can open up the document details, and there's the article.
Yep.
That is dramatically different than what you'd find out on ChatGPT or
For
even
sure.
within the databases, because you have a very dynamic link there. If I want to look at the author, which is Richard Meyer, it'll take me into the
Nice.
database for Richard Meyer, and this is really powerful. Here's all of the articles that he's written, citations, references, etc. So not only do you get the power of AI to find these articles, then it takes you back into Scopus of the database about those particular authors, who it's cited by, all kinds of information about that particular offer. That's really helpful for students that are into a brand new topic and they want to find out who are the leading authors here that are cited on my topic. And that'll take them right into that kind of that treasure trove of articles.
Awesome. All right. What's our third tool that you want us to know about?
So the third tool here, so that was Scopus AI. Really recommend you do that. And as you mentioned, Punya, that all it requires is an ASU login to the ASU library, and you can get into Scopus AI. The last one I want to show you is uh, lip maps. And lip maps is very similar to what you saw in Research Rabbit. It's a visual learning tool that gives you kind of the links of, let me see if I got, let me go back in there. I can find some of those same articles I was looking for within lip maps. And what this does is this is very oriented towards the mapping of how articles are related and cited. So very similar to what you saw in Research Rabbit, but the emphasis really is on this mapping. So again, here's your articles you can find. Here's the links. And as you click around this dynamic grid here, I can see how the articles are linked together. And then when I click on those, I can actually see the articles. And again, all of these tools, if you want to use a citation manager like Zotero, you can move import and export
Sure.
inside and out of these tools. You see the import, and
Yeah.
here's actually a sync with Zotero. So if you have a Zotero database now, you can sync it into these tools, Research Rabbit or Lip Maps, and boom, all of a sudden you've got all these capabilities for doing graphic lip maps and things. The difference with lip maps is it's much more oriented towards these graphics rather than Research Rabbit, which gives you the kind of the inside
Right.
searching within those articles.
Right. And this is kind of interesting because if you think about the way academia is sort of structured, like who's citing whom and how many times a person gets cited is in some ways a measure of the influence of the ideas and how they're connected with each other.
For sure. For
And I think
sure.
what Litmaps is doing is sort of like leaning into that more than anything else, so that you can see
It,
the lay of the land, as it were.
Exactly. Exactly. And then you can see how they're connected. I mean, you can see when you
Mhm.
build these maps, you can see who are the key people in this field. And I know that in
Got it.
particular with multimedia learning, it's Richard Meyer out of UCSB is
Sure.
one of the premier researchers in that. So again, as a new doc student, you're trying to find just the lay of the land. Who's writing about this topic? Who's getting cited? Who should I be looking at? And you're kind of free forming going through this, trying to find out where are the connections, where are the links, and it's really a great tool for doing that. Now, you
Perfect.
might be
All right.
asking, Punya, now that you found all these articles,
Yes.
what do
So
you
let me
do?
just let me summarize so that people key takeaways. One, we're moving from, as in many things, from a Boolean to a more natural language search. That these existing large language models, which suck all the oxygen out of the room in terms of the news, ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, Perplexity and so on, are not necessarily the best tools
No,
for sort of catching up on the current research. They tend to hallucinate. They're not up to date, the training model wise, and so on. Google Scholar is still a really great place to start. But if you want to understand the lay of the land of a domain, which are some key articles and so on, so we have talked about Scopus, which is through ASU. We have talked about Research Rabbit. We have talked about Litmaps. Now, coming to the question that you were going to prompt me with, which is, okay, fine. I found these articles. I have them in my Zotero database, or I have all the PDFs on my hard drive. There's just so much. how do I now start seeing them in terms of patterns and so on, so that I can start writing up that chapter of my dissertation? So what do you
Exactly,
recommend for that?
exactly. So one of the tools for that would be Google Notebook LM. And in Google Notebook LM, you can create notebooks of different information. In fact, they've got notebooks now that have been created on all kinds of different topics, which is really
Hmm.
exciting. We don't have enough time to do that. But let's say you've got a notebook that's got all these articles here. Here I've got a notebook that I think I've got 15 or 20 articles. Now you have kind of the best of both worlds. You found the articles. Now you have them inside Google Notebook LM. And now you've got an AI that I can look for patterns across these articles. I can look for keywords. I can find information, how they're related. In fact, I can even take an individual article, and over here on the upper right-hand side, I can do an audio overview, which means it makes a podcast about that article to give you just an overview. It can give you a mind map, a video presentation. I mean, it's really a remarkable tool within Google Notebook LM. So
So
it'll like, go ahead.
yeah, no, a couple of quick caveats here from what I have read from some of my colleagues about this. To take some of the audio overviews and video overviews a little bit with a grain of salt. Nuance often gets lost when it takes a research study. Sometimes it's more extravagant in its description of it and so on. However, so that's always, I mean, that's sort of a caveat that we need to keep in mind anytime we are doing any work with anything which is sort of natural language based large language models, whether it's Notebook LM or Research Rabbit and so on. Despite the claims that they are very accurate and they base it on this, there always is the potential for it making stuff up, or even more sort of critical is missing nuance,
A
which
hundred
is
percent,
right.
yeah.
And
And I'm really
so,
glad you brought that
yeah.
up. Yeah.
So just keeping that in mind, I think, but these tools do allow us to do a lot in terms of capturing the parameters of a field, the landscape of a given domain, sort of key articles within that space, new literature that's emerged there to help you get a good start on this chapter two that you've been struggling with.
Exactly. Yeah. And once these articles are in here, I always tell my students, don't ask ChatGPT to get, upload an article to ChatGPT and ask for quotes. It won't get the quotes verbatim. It doesn't know the page numbers.
Yep.
And so don't do that. However, if you're inside Google Notebook LM, I can put a query in here and I ask for creativity, references to creativity. All these links here, you can
Are
see
links
it's
to the
taking
actual
me,
articles.
it's the actual article and it highlights the actual text in that article. So this is a really powerful tool within there to look across articles for different ideas or themes, whatever you're looking for. And again, what you pointed out is we want students to be reading articles and understanding the article, not just having it summarized by AI because it misses really key points. But here, if you're interacting with it, you can now ask specific questions, look for themes, and then as you click, you're going between the articles. So again, it's not the tool you necessarily start with, but once you have your articles, it's a really fabulous tool to help you as you begin your writing.
Perfect. Thank you, Jim. This was great. I learned a lot, and I think when we upload this video, people are going to learn a lot, and it's going to be
I
useful.
think it'll be good. It's a lot of tools.
Yeah.
Like you said in the very beginning, it's a tool kit. It's not
Yeah.
one tool. It's a
Right.
combination of use these tools. And if you're doing that, then I think you're becoming a super researcher, as opposed to just a researcher that's using the old past tools. I think
All right.
it'll make a big difference.
So I have a lot of catching up to do because I still don't use Zotero. So I'm still there, just showing my age here, Jim. So, but thank you so much for this. I think this will be great fun, and I really do appreciate. I sent you this text at 4:30 in the morning saying, "Jim, I have an idea," and here we are. So thank you for
Here we
that.
are.
And yeah, and I
Yeah,
think this is great.
that was fun. Maybe we'll do it again sometime. We'll go
Yeah,
out a
we'll
little
find
deeper
another
dive
topic
on one
and
of.
we'll do that.
Yeah, good.
All right.
Okay. All
Thanks.
right. Take care.